Okay, welcome to This Week in Triathlon. I'm Kevin Chidonio, joined by my co-host, Andres Dezoglo. How's it going, Andreas?
We're good over here in beautiful Berkeley. We're actually away from our studios this week.
Yeah, it is race week. Ironman Florida this week. Yours truly will be competing in that race. I'm looking forward to bringing you some live video and pictures and some recaps next week and some of the skinny, what's going on. It's going to be a big pro field. We got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about Ironman Florida. We're going to talk about a couple different things. But first, I want to talk to you and spend a couple minutes here talking about a new fad that I'm sure you've heard of, Andres, and maybe some of our listeners have heard of, and that is nitrate supplementation. Are you familiar with this at all, or drinking beet juice before a race?
Yeah, I've heard quite a bit about it, and I've got my thoughts about it, as I'm assuming you do. I can't guarantee that my thoughts are very are backed heavily by scientific fact, but a lot of times that doesn't matter. At least it doesn't matter to me. So I'm curious to hear what you've got to say about it. But certainly I've heard a lot about it, especially recently.
Okay, so just so our viewers can, just so I can kind of capture their interest, we're talking about performance-enhancing ergogenic effects from loading your body with nitrates before a race, and we're not talking about 1% or 2%, potentially up to 16% time to exhaustion and improved time to exhaustion. So that's huge, and that was actually comes out of a study that was done in 2009. And there's been some kind of corroborating studies going on, and essentially what they're talking about is loading your body with nitrates. And nitrates are found in a lot of foods. They're found in some processed foods like hot dogs and salamis and meats, things like that, things that my co-host Andres never puts in his perfect virgin body. But the inorganic nitrates can also be found in a lot of vegetables like kale, like basil, arugula, but also beets. And I think that you hear a lot about people supplementing with beet juice because it's one of the more readily accessible things. You can drink it pretty easily. Actually, the highest count in a naturally occurring substance as far as an edible food that you can take is actually arugula. So it's not by coincidence I'm just pounding the arugula this week. Arugula actually has the highest content of organic nitrates per weight, parts per million, actually about 4 times as much as beets. I actually tried juicing arugula. It actually tasted a hell of a lot better than beet juice. But essentially what's going on is you flood your body with all these nitrates, and so the nitrates come into your system, they go into your stomach, and actually it's not just drinking or eating the nitrate-rich foods. What actually is very interesting to me is that what happens after you consume the nitrates. So your body can't use those nitrates, apparently, that dietary nitrate. What has to happen is your body actually sends those nitrates back to your saliva, believe it or not. And your saliva, actually all the bacteria in your saliva actually process this nitrate into nitrite. And I wish I could say I don't want to bore our listeners with all this scientific jargon. The truth is I don't really understand it all. And while Andreas takes a nap, I went through and actually tested this because when I saw 16% performance-enhancing benefit, I was like, this has got to be almost too good to be true. And I read an article from actually Michele Ferrari, who is obviously famous because he was Lance's doping doctor. Michele Ferrari wrote an article on his website, 5312.com, about the benefits of nitrate supplementation. Actually likened it to actually taking a pint of blood, and actually injecting a pint of blood. So it's almost as good as like light blood doping, really. But the problem I have before Andres jumps in and spoils my parade is how do you get these nitrates into your body before a race and race with all your stomach and with everything that's going on, the stress and the race morning? Because really you have to take this stuff about 2-3 hours before a race, and it lasts anywhere from 4 to 9 hours, kind of depending on how your body metabolizes it. So the prospect of drinking a half liter or a full liter of beet juice race morning, I'll tell you what, I actually did that last year at Ironman in Arizona, and I had to pull over and stop before I even left the driveway, and actually got sick and threw up all over the driveway. And I'll tell you what, beet juice stains. So Andres, what's your thought on all this stuff?
Well, so you bring up a lot of good points, and I think scientifically speaking, and in terms of theoretically what nitrates can do, it does make a lot of sense. But on the other side, I looked and saw at some of the studies that have been done, and it can be a lot of it can be a lot of marketing from some of the stuff that I read. And you know, it's great, like I said, in theory. But for somebody who, like yourself, who eats healthily on a regular basis, you're already consuming a lot of these, so the effect of it isn't as great for somebody who's consuming a lot of it. The other thing that I read is that a lot of the studies that have been done have actually not been done on elite athletes. They've just been done on people who barely exercise, and that's typically when they see the biggest results for somebody who's not typically out there. Swimming, biking, running, etc. There's only one study done in the article that I was reading that involved elite athletes, and the results were mixed. They couldn't draw a conclusion on whether it did benefit, because it did benefit some, but it didn't benefit others. So it was inconclusive at best, and I think it's just one of those, like you said, you called it a fad earlier, and I think that's what it is. It's just a fad that currently, with the proper marketing, can go a long way, but it still remains to be seen on the effects of it, in my opinion.
Well, here's the deal. There's actually been quite a bit of studies, and you can go online and look at nitrates, and supplementation. I'll just give you some anecdotal experience. Last week, I did a group ride called the Coffee Republic Ride. It's a group ride in Folsom that draws a lot of Cat 1, 2s, some 3s, and then I just jumped in. I'm a triathlete. I don't usually do group rides because I don't like to take people down with my bad bike handling. But I took 2 cups of arugula juice 2 hours before the group ride, and about right after I drank the arugula juice, I actually did something Michele Ferrari recommends, which is actually the important part, which is actually letting your saliva do the work. So you don't want to brush your teeth right after consuming the beets. You don't want to swish your mouth out or drink a Coke or anything like that. You want to let the saliva do the work, which is kind of disgusting to think about it. So what I did, according to Michele Ferrari, some cyclists will actually suck on beans, like dry kidney beans. So I popped like a small handful of kidney beans in my mouth and actually just sucked on these beans and just salivated a bunch. It was kind of gross. And then I kind of got this light headache, and that's when you know it's working, is when you get a little bit of a light headache, because the nitrates actually, it's a vasodilator, and your blood pressure actually goes down, which is kind of interesting. So with that headache, I went down and did the Coffee Republic ride, and there's all these kind of like sprints and hill climbs, and what I found myself was I don't usually climb with like the 1-2 guys. But I actually was able to drop every single person, and actually just one other guy and I were able to drop everybody on the ride. Maybe I'm just fit, but about the marketing, Andreas, there's not a lot of money right now to be made behind it, because the only company that I've seen that is actually selling supplements right now that's targeted for this is a company out of England called Beat It, and they're these little.
Kevin, but it's really no different than the coconut milk or the coconut juice craze that was going around and still is going around to a certain extent. I think there is money to be made, and coconut juice was already taken, so there's got to be something else. And just to go back to the example that you're giving, was it the nitrates and was it the experiment? Maybe. I mean, who's to say that on that day, had you done that or not done that, you wouldn't have had the exact same result, unless you have a clone of Kevin Tedonio that didn't do that at the same moment of the ride, that did the exact same other things that day, except for pound 2 cups of arugula juice and suck on some dry beans. You're really not going to know if that was really the effect of doing that or not.
So we can go back and forth all day, but I do actually urge our viewers, if you have a good power meter, if you have a good test you can think up, maybe like an hour all-out time trial effort, if you know what your numbers are over time and you know what your heart rate looks like, what's actually very interesting, the most interesting thing really of this, is that what scientists found with the athletes and the people that they tested with this is that while the powers and time to exhaustion went up and everything, the one thing that was very interesting was that oxygen consumption actually went down. So whatever is happening in the body, whatever is going on with these nitrates, something's going on to make things more efficient. And scientists don't know exactly what it is. So I think this is going to be an area of research, and I know we're going to see some athletes debating it. But you see a lot of pro athletes talk about slime and beet juice all the time. Before we jump off it, one thing that is kind of interesting is when you eat beets, everything turns red. So be careful if you're drinking the beet juice, and
don't be alarmed.
Well, I thought it'd be a funny prank, just if you're on the run of the marathon and start screaming that you have kidney stones while you're peeing out beet juice. You just freak everybody out. It'd be hilarious. Anyways, with that thought, we're going to jump into some other stuff going on this week. Ironman Florida. Athletes are assembling in Panama City Beach. Some are there, some are on their way there. I'll be taking off tomorrow morning to get to the Flatlands. Actually, I believe this is considered to be the fastest Ironman course in the United States, Andreas. Any thoughts on this course?
Well, we know it's fast on the bike. We've had the course record, the 112-mile course record or distance record broken there by Andrew Starkowicz last year, Mr. 404. That's where he got his nickname from. So we know that. I think the winds have a lot to play with that, a lot to do with that, rather, depending on which way the winds are going. But regardless, I think the most that you'll see an elevation change is those overpasses that they have over highways in Florida is I think the most you'll do in climbing. So yes, it is a fast course, both on the bike and on the run, and I think also to some extent the swim, depending on which way the current's going, can be fairly fast.
Right, so it's actually a huge field. Believe it or not, there's 76 male pros on the start list. We'll see how many actually show up. We have guys like Dirk Bockel, Tim O'Donnell, Andrew Starkowitz, Kevin Tedonio, and then some other athletes that will actually be making their Ironman debuts that might not be that familiar to some of our viewers. Damon Barnett will be competing in his first Ironman race. We'll be seeing how he does. He's shown he's pretty strong at the 70.3 distance, so I'm kind of curious to see how he does stepping up to fulls against guys that have been racing hard all year long. And then
he's got the Q rings on not the Q rings, but he's got the Osymetrics and the P5. So if I remember correctly, that was a combination that won Kona. So maybe he can be 1 for 1, huh?
I think he's even got the straight extension. So look out. And then on the women's side, a huge women's field is well assembled. It was interesting for me looking at the list. I mean, we have Yvonne Van Vlorken, who got 4th at Kona. She's racing this weekend. Marinda Carfer is racing this weekend. But you have to think about it. I don't think these athletes are so much racing. The athletes that did really well in Kona, they're just looking to validate their slots early, so they don't need to do another Ironman brand race until Kona next year. So Yvonne Van Vlorken, she's probably already in. Tim O'Donnell, top American at Kona, he's just looking to validate. So I'm not expecting these people to really go all out. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. Maybe they feel it, maybe they don't. But Dirk Bockel's racing, even though he dropped out at Kona, so maybe he's looking to get some points there. Also on the women's side, my favorite for the women's side has got to be hands down Rebecca Keat, who just dominated at Austin 70.3. We know she had a mechanical issue at Kona. She's looking for blood at Panama City Beach this weekend. She's shown that her swims kind of come around. She's an awesome bike runner, so I think it's her race to lose. Hopefully she doesn't have another freak mechanical like she had at Kona. I can't imagine anything could go more wrong for her than what happened at Kona. So looking for Rebecca Keat to kind of have a return to success there.
Yeah, I think you hit on an important point, which is a lot of these Kona folks that did well in Hawaii at the World Championships, they're just looking to validate, and Rinny has come out and said that herself. She tweeted that she's not so sure about what kind of competition she's going to be providing for the rest of the field and for the people watching. She's just looking to validate, and her and T.O. are getting married sometime next year, so I think that's one less thing that they'll have to think about, where they can actually essentially be in to next year's World Championship and not have to think much about it throughout the year. So look out for that. I do agree that Rebecca Keat's probably looking pretty good to take that race. On the men's side, can Andrew Starkowicz repeat what he did last year, and can he go 4:04 faster? That'll be interesting to see, and I'm certainly looking forward to see how you do.
Yeah, me too. After a tough race in Tahoe and partying a little bit in the Big Island and running around there and kind of really having about 2 weeks of training, it'll be interesting to see. A lot of people ask, how long does it take to recover from an Ironman? And it's different from person to person and how much that course takes out of you. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But
actually, speaking of a lot of racing over the last few weeks, if you remember Brad, who we met at at the condos we were staying at. He actually did Kona and finished in a very fast 9:03, I think was his time. Then headed to Austin last weekend and is actually at Florida for Ironman Florida this week, which is pretty insane. And I don't know what he's trying to do, but I'm assuming that he's just trying to get his qualifications out of the way and maybe just getting on with life for a little while before racing again.
Yeah, so Brad Williams, he represents the Team Air Force. Him and his
red, white, and blue.
Red, white, and blue. So him and representing the armed services. So it'll be cool to see him at Florida as well. So hopefully we have something left in the tank.
Yeah, we'll see. But so the other thing that we wanted to talk about, I don't know if you've had anything else to say about Ironman Florida. It's obviously this Saturday, correct?
Yes.
Not the typical Sunday. It's on Saturday, and I'm assuming it starts either at 6:30 or 7 local time. And coverage will not be as good as obviously we've seen in Kona. And even though you said you'll be providing live video, I doubt that you'll take your camera with you on the run and on the bike, but you will provide some insight while there. But look out for updates from the Sunshine State, I think it's called.
Yeah, I have the camera here, and it's actually got the gyroscope lens in here. So my dad is actually going to be riding a cruiser bike and taking some video of myself and some of the other athletes, and so hopefully we get some of the same quality footage that we had from Kona when I was riding around on the cruiser bike. So hopefully it goes good.
So you wanted to talk a little bit about nutrition as well, nutrition in general, and how Tim DeBoom, if I remember correctly, before we went on air, was saying that some of his best races were when he felt he was eating a lot. So let's talk a little bit about nutrition.
Yeah, well, nutrition was something I took kind of a hard second look at going into Ironman Tahoe because it was going to be a little bit colder race, a little bit longer race, so I wanted to eat a lot more. And that was also kind of corroborated by from some of the things I was hearing from some of the pro athletes. I remember hearing about Mark Allen. One of the things he really tried to do is train his body to be able to consume as many amount of calories on the bike as possible. Because when you're on the bike, you're burning over 1,000 calories an hour, and it's impossible to try to recoup all of that glycogen that you're expending on the course. So how much can you take in before your stomach kind of turns and you can't absorb anymore? You can actually train your body to kind of break down some more of that. So a lot of people recommend, depending on your size, between 350 and 500 calories an hour. Where I've heard some guys that have won Ironman World Championships consuming 600, 700 calories an hour, which is a lot. And hearing about Tim DeBoom saying the best Ironman races he's had were the ones where he felt like he was eating nonstop on the bike. And one thing that was kind of interesting to me about that was eating nonstop was some research I saw about actually holding some kind of food in your mouth, which this is very interesting. It might sound kind of abstract, but it's true. This has been proven in studies that if you can actually hold like a carbohydrate-rich solution in your mouth, whether it be a drink or a gel or a chomp, whatever you're eating, if you can hold that in your mouth, your body actually, your perceived exertion your body actually has will actually go down. So you can actually put the same amount of power, same speed out while just holding that little bit of, so try not to swallow a bunch of water with it right away. And what they think happens in your body is your mind, somewhere in your lizard brain, the back of your brain, actually thinks that you're going to have some carbohydrate coming to you, so it's okay to go a little bit harder because you're eating this stuff. So one of the things I urge you to do, and this is one of the things I tried at Tahoe, is if you're eating a bar, sit that bar like in your cheek, almost like a chipmunk, and kind of chew on it. You don't have to swallow it all away. You don't need to swallow it with a bunch of water right away. But that's one of the things you might want to try. I'll take you into the kitchen, show you what I got this weekend for Ironman Florida. And I'll just show you some of the foods that I'm taking, and I just got a big bag full of goodies here, so bear with me. But not for the race, I'm going to take a little bit of this product. I'm not a sponsor, but I'd like to take their pre-load hydration. It's got just a ton of electrolytes, which is really good, and not just like potassium and sodium, but some of the other things like magnesium and calcium and things like that. Another product that I've kind of been turned on to recently is actually just pure glucose. I feel like as the race goes on, you need more simple carbohydrates. That's one of the things that Maca actually suggests. So while on the bike, I might be taking bars, some Infinite, and some chomps and things like that. As the bike goes on and as I start the run, I'm actually going to be taking some of this product, and this is actually called Dex4. You can find it at Target or any pharmacy. It's actually a product more for diabetics. And what's interesting about the glucose is that it's actually the fastest carbohydrate you can actually take and put into your system. They'll actually raise your blood sugar. So we know that the body uses glycogen as a fuel source, and as your body runs out of glycogen as the race goes on, as you hit that bar, nothing's going to replace that blood sugar faster than just pure glucose. So I recommend giving it a shot, the pure glucose. Some athletes handle it, some don't, but you're never going to know unless you try it. So
I think that's the point to be emphasized, is that whatever works for one person is not necessarily going to work for somebody else. People's bodies react to different methods differently, but certainly it seems like a lot of the trend has gone back to eating your calories versus drinking them, and I think that's part of the Osmo sort of philosophy and the Scratch Labs philosophy, that when you try to drink your calories a lot of times, you end up dehydrating yourself, and it's important that you're eating enough calories, but also that you're not getting dehydrated when you're out on the course for 4 or 5 hours and then have a marathon to run afterwards.
Absolutely. You really want to stay away from eating the pure arugula nitrate supplementation while you're actually on the bike. So that's left for before the race.
Yeah, and as we watch you eat some arugula, I was just thinking, between the dried beans and putting a power bar in your cheek, aside from looking like a chipmunk, you're really not going to be able to fit anything else in your mouth, including water or anything like that. So it'll be interesting to see how many other studies we can come up that tell you to put stuff in your mouth, because so far you have dried beans and some sort of solid or liquid in there.
Yeah, well, I think we should probably sign off while I still can talk before I pack my mouth full of more arugula. So I want to thank our listeners for tuning in this week to This Week in Triathlon. Looking forward to sharing some of the experiences from Ironman Florida next week, and that's all we got.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Andreas.